Hello, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated. Welcome to another badly made but hopefully somewhat informative video. Today I want to address what is definitely the most common question I get from people, which is, where do I buy my inventory? Where do all those computers come from? The answer is electronics recyclers, but it's a complex topic, so I want to talk a little bit about recyclers and how they work, because understanding them is critical in order to build relationships with them. First, what is a recycler? A recycler is generally a private company that either buys or gets donations of electronics, usually from corporations, government, and schools, sometimes even the general public. The material has come off lease and it's fairly old, like 5 or more years old generally, so don't expect new stuff from recyclers. It's sometimes working, but it's often broken because it's essentially all been left for dead. Recyclers generally do two things with the material they get. If it has value, they sell it off as what it is. For example, a computer, if it's still a fairly modern, still works, still has monetary value, they'll sell it as a computer. The other option is to scrap it, which means it's broken down into its component parts, which could be metal, plastic, batteries, screens, logic board, RAM, anything. A laptop scrap value is generally about $10, so if a computer can be sold for more than that, it generally will be, but if the computer is so old that nobody will pay anything for it, nobody wants it, then it'll get scrapped because it's worth more as scrap than it is as the thing that it is, if that makes any sense. And I'm simplifying here, but I think you get the idea. Recyclers build relationships with buyers who specialize in any given kind of scrap or any type of electronics. They like buyers who are reliable and who will buy all they have to offer at an agreed upon price. The way I think of it, it's like a game of Tetris. The manager of a recycler manages a big space, the warehouse. There's tons of stuff coming into the space constantly. The manager has to organize it, process it, and get rid of it before running out of space. It's this constant game of getting rid of stuff. So recyclers like dealing with people who help them play the Tetris game. In other words, they like specialists who will efficiently take away a specific color Tetris piece when it appears. For instance, I buy MacBooks, so I let my recyclers know that anytime they get MacBooks, they can rely on me to buy all of them, to take away the red Tetris pieces, for example. And it's important to be reliable in that respect. You want to buy it all, the good and the bad, because if you don't take it all, you're not helping the recycler with their problem, with eliminating the entire Tetris piece. The reason you don't want to only buy some of it is, imagine in Tetris if a piece broke into smaller pieces that needed to be organized. That would be ridiculous. That would break the game. But that's what happens when you ask to only buy 50 when they have 1,000 to offer. You're more of a nuisance than anything, and you're complicating the situation, and meanwhile more stuff is coming in the door. Part of the power of taking all is that you can often buy at a low price. Like I said, when you take all, you have leverage, and the recycler likes you because you're fixing their problem with regard to that particular item. So you want to capture the leverage of taking all because recyclers usually value getting rid of stuff more than they value top dollar. And chances are that the people you work with at the recyclers aren't the owners, so they don't necessarily care about money as much as getting their work done for the day. I know I probably use too many analogies, but another way to think of it is that you're the trash guy. What happens if the trash guy only takes part of the trash? They're going to get annoyed and they'll need to find an additional trash person, and what's more, they'll probably call that person the next time because they're pissed at you for not taking it all previously. So avoid that situation. You might be thinking, taking all obviously means you've got to have some money to work with. Depending on what you're buying and the recycler, that might mean $500 or it might mean $20,000. But clearly money is a limiting factor. When you're refurbishing, you just have to have money to invest in the product that you're fixing and selling. There's no real way around that. In my early days, I paid with PayPal, and I often still do, and PayPal is nice because it allows you to make purchases and put them on a credit card. I don't like encouraging debt, but if you're getting good merchandise at the right price that you know you can make money on, this can be a good way to get a foothold as your business grows without having to save up a ton of money first. As you might have already gathered, one of the big takeaways here is that it's important to make yourself useful to recyclers. It's important to look at them as your customers. The customer-vendor relationship is actually backwards in this situation. Most people think, hey, I'm buying something from this company, so I'm the customer, they're the vendor, and they owe me, right? They should treat me well. But with recyclers, that's not the case, and you're actually lucky that they're choosing to partner with you. So if you're thinking about it right, it's like they are your customer, and it's important to keep that customer happy. Especially if you're buying valuable electronics, you're probably very replaceable, so keep them happy at all costs. Be fast, efficient, don't ask too many questions about the stuff because they probably are too busy to have answers. Don't complain about what you get afterward, etc. You want them to think positively of you, not cringe at the thought of you. So that's a little bit about recyclers, but the obvious question is, how do you find them? How do you get into these relationships? Most of the recycling world is hidden from public view, and most people haven't even seen one, so they really don't know how to approach them. But there are lots of them. They're in every city. They're in rural areas. There are indexes of them on the internet that you can look up, and you can call them and see if they have the products you want. But I found that to be pretty ineffective, honestly. The way I found most all the recyclers I've ever dealt with is through eBay. The way it works is pretty simple. If a recycler doesn't have a buyer for a particular product, they often put it on eBay. And therefore, the fact that they are selling it on eBay is evidence that they don't have a buyer and that they could use a buyer. So this represents an opportunity for you to reach out and become that buyer for that recycler. I use a certain technique to do this. First, you have to identify the recyclers on eBay. Generally, if they're selling the product in bulk, that's a huge indicator. I sell MacBooks, so I search for MacBook lot because they sell in quantity generally. Obviously, you can search for any product that way. Sort by newly listed because the good deals appear as quickly as they're listed. Often stuff is sold as is. That might look suspicious, but honestly recyclers get millions of items, so they don't have time to test things on an individual basis, and it's easier for them to just sell as is. You can also look at their other items and verify they're items that a recycler would sell. If they're selling hundreds of electronic odds and ends, they're probably a recycler, but if their only other listing is a pile of dirty socks, probably not. Often their names make it obvious. Recyclers generally have straightforward names like dynamic recycling or innovative recycling. Some recyclers call themselves ITADs these days, which stands for IT asset disposition or something silly. So keep that in mind, ITAD, ITAD. One important topic is that most people have a knee-jerk reaction that causes them to think buying local is better, but really there's not much advantage to local, and sticking to local recyclers really limits the possibilities, especially with eBay. Having inventory shipped to you is pretty easy, and it saves you having to spend a day picking up from quote-unquote local recyclers that may be hours away. Local's not bad, don't get me wrong, but don't allow yourself to be restricted to that. Fact is, it's pretty ideal to be working all day and have your inventory simply show up in the mail. It helps to be familiar with a freight company like freightquote.com that can go pick a pallet up for you, or even just have FedEx or UPS accounts so that you can send recyclers prepaid labels so they don't have to deal with the shipping themselves. I'll have to talk about spotting good deals and finding the right products to sell in another video because that's a huge topic. But getting back to my method of building relationships with recyclers, what you want to do once you've spotted a recycler selling relevant product at a good price is buy something from them. And I have a major rule for pricing. Never pay more than you can sell it for broken. In other words, because it's all as is, assume it's all broken. And ask yourself, what's a price that would make it still worth it, even if it shows up and it's all just broken? This will keep you safe if you stick by this rule. As soon as you start paying more than it's worth broken, you're gambling, and all gamblers lose everything eventually. So you don't want to be a gambler in this game. And also, as they say, you don't make money when you sell, you make money when you buy. That's because the selling price is predictable. You can look it up on eBay. But the prices you can buy things at differ wildly. And paying too much is the worst thing you can possibly do as a refurbisher because it necessitates you spend tons of your time just trying to cut even to make up for your stupid mistake. So buy at the right price. Anyway, so you buy something. Hopefully you get a workable product, but because you bought it at the right price, it really doesn't matter because it's still a good deal, right? So the next step is to approach the recycler. Because you already bought something, they kind of owe you a little attention. Plus, also because you bought something, you already know they're amenable to selling in the right price range. And that's a great thing to know because most recyclers simply want too much money, and that stops any relationship dead in its tracks. So you've already overcome that. Another thing that you know, pretty much by the fact that they are on eBay selling broken stuff at all, is that they probably don't have certifications which would prevent them from selling to any given person. Again, topic for another video, but certifications are pretty evil and they cause tons of electronics to be scrapped because they add in additional costs that make repair and refurbishing more expensive, and they make recyclers very wary of selling to people like you who are not certified as well. So finding them on eBay avoids the whole certification mess. So anyway, back to approaching the recycler. You want to email the recycler through eBay and say something like, "Hey, thanks very much for the product. It worked out well. I'm a refurbisher, and when you get more, please let me know and I'll buy all of it." And then just see what happens. This approach is attractive to recyclers because everyone hates listing items and dealing with problem buyers, so the idea of avoiding that and saving time is tempting. They'll often respond to your email, usually positively, but to be honest, only 1 in 10 or 20 will end up reaching out later when they have product in stock. But that's okay because building relationships is not easy. In sales, there's a concept that if you drop 100 cold calls into a funnel, maybe, if you're lucky, one of them will result in a sale. And it's really the same concept here. If you use this technique 100 times, maybe one time it will result in a steady relationship with a recycler. Like I said, it's hard, but it's worth it because a relationship can last years and can get you millions of dollars in product. A single partnership with a good recycler might be your ticket for the next 10 years. You just never know. But you have to stick with it. If you do, eventually you'll find at least one partner that will call you up weekly or monthly with a mountain of material, and once you're in that situation, the transactions are very simple because you're both dealing with the trusted entity, and all the difficulties have already been worked out. But most people never make it to that point. They get frustrated because they assume relationship building should be as easy as buying from a website, and then they never build a single relationship, and they therefore assume refurbishing is not even viable as a possibility. Alright, so there you have it. That's basically what I wanted to cover, just a very, very broad overview to give you kind of the general scope of things. There's really so much more though, but I'd really like to take it on in smaller chunks than give you a 3-hour video and make everyone fall asleep. So anyway, let me know if this kind of thing helps. Let me know what other aspects of refurbishing you'd like me to cover and talk about. And if you liked the video, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.